It gets there.
She didn't say action.
Say action whenever you're ready. I'm having trouble connecting to my internet.
Now you're.
Thank you, everybody, for attending the May 5th, 2022 Carbondale Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Okay, would you take roll call?
Nick Miss Young.
Kim McGee. Here. John Williams.
Here.
Eric Seacrest is absent. Melissa Jones is absent. Eric Dowd is absent. Jess Pedersen
Here.
and Heather McDonald.
Here.
Okay, before we get started on the agenda items in earnest, are there any persons present not on the agenda who we would like to address? Okay, seeing no persons present, let's move on to item number 3, which is approval of the April 7th, 2022 minutes. Would someone like to entertain a motion to approve? Well, before I say that, are there any comments, questions, concerns about the minutes that were recorded from April 7th?
Yeah, it says that John Lambert cautioned that it was a slippery slope and that he has reached out to the town attorney because that would be infringing on property rights. He wants to get their opinion on whether the Historic Preservation Commission can appeal a property owner's decision not to landmark their own property. I thought that landmarking was a voluntary action taken by a property owner. Why would we be taking on that task of landmarking a property and the owner's decision not to landmark it?
I think Eric Dowd actually brought up the topic of that landmarking. And that's in the task force meeting, that first paragraph or at the beginning of the paragraph, and about landmarking and forcing people. And so that's where I think John was.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. That's pretty dangerous.
Right.
And I don't think we want to be taking that stance.
I wasn't here for that meeting, but if it was related to the task force, I think there might be some misunderstanding because no one that I know of in the group has ever advocated for mandatory landmarking without the owner's consent.
Later on, it was mentioned that we would try and landmark the Dinkle building and some other various buildings. But that's,
With the owner's
yeah,
consent. There might have been some confusion, but again, I wasn't here. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think the context of it was that be it Eric or whoever made the statement, wanted to be able to appeal that owner's thoughts up to the Board of Trustees. I think that's where that came from. And that's why I made the comment, just like, well, hey, we're following the code here by approaching the landowner's property owner to say, hey, will you work with us to landmark it? And if they say no, I think Eric's standpoint, it's too bad he's not here to comment on that, was that he wanted the power to go to the Board of Trustees and appeal that landowner's decision to not landmark it. But the way the code reads now is they decide not to landmark it, we're done.
So is it your interest in amending
No, I
minutes to
think-
reflect
I think
that?
Decision should stay the same. I don't think we have any right to, go to the board in order to.
I think that's, I absolutely that, I think that we're all in agreement
Yeah.
on that, but do you feel like the minutes don't reflect what was actually discussed, or is it good as is?
It's just a little,
Unclear.
I think it's accurately depicted as to what was discussed, but I think it's, I don't know, did you talk to an attorney about that?
I did reach out to our attorneys and have not gotten the response back yet.
Mhm.
Just they're overworked like we all are.
Yeah.
My recollection of that was that we were discussing the possibilities of things we wanted to see done. And when that came up, Eric, that was one of the things that Eric would like to see implemented down the road. I don't think he was suggesting that that's the way it is now. Because it's definitely not the way it is now.
Meaning mandatory landmarking?
Yeah, it's got to be, it has to be the owner's consent. And he was suggesting that if there's an obvious building that is really a historical value to the town, that maybe possibly this commission could object to that and take it to the trustees and have the trustees talk the owner into it or whatever. We didn't really even take it any further than that. It was just a possibility, something that we might like to see done in the future. Is the way I vaguely remember that.
I apologize for coming in late to this, but my understanding from Eric's comments, I know you couldn't hear me on that meeting, but I could hear you. Were that if the owner objected to landmarking, there'd be potential to introduce a grace period of, I forget what the time frame was. I think he said 180 days and was trying to get an extension on that to allow the CHPC to document the building before it was demolished. That was my understanding of what Eric was saying is they may demolish it and that's entirely within their right. It'd be really nice if we'd be able to go in and document it, unlike the Telegraph building, which is what he was using as sort of a precedent of what we didn't get to do in that instance.
Yeah, we've discussed it that way many times. So,
Yeah, he had 2 points. That's one of them. And the other one is to kind of override the decision to not landmark it and have the trustees talk the homeowners into maybe giving them incentives or for whatever process we come up with in the future.
Yeah, I didn't hear him say that, but that very well may be the case.
I think that's what he's trying to get at. But far be it for me to speak for Eric Dowd. So read the minute thing again that you were you weren't objecting to it, you just were clarifying that.
Clarifying it. And the last part of it was, the Historic Preservation Commission can appeal a property owner's decision not to landmark their own property. I thought those were pretty heavy-handed thoughts.
Maybe I should amend it to read something like a possible future action for us to discuss is to be able to do that.
Well, I guess I don't feel like it's all that heavy-handed, other than to say, we're appealing it, but we can't do anything about it. We would like you to landmark this. So I guess it depends on what the definition of appealing is. If appealing takes it to the Board of Trustees and then the Board of Trustees has the authority to make that decision for them, then I would say, yeah, that's heavy-handed. But I guess it depends on the interpretation of that appeal process.
So to intercede here, we're just reviewing the content of the minutes, and it seems like we've gotten into a separate discussion here. So are the minutes correct?
Right. Sorry, let's just be clear about what the agenda item is. It's either approval or disapproval of the minutes, and do the minutes need to be amended or not to reflect what was actually discussed?
I think they represent what was discussed.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions, concerns regarding the recording of the minutes of the last meeting? Not to cut you off, and we can add this to a later agenda as an agenda
It
item.
would be great if Eric were here to further explain.
Right, yep, I think that's true. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns regarding the minutes of the last meeting? I'd like to enter, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes as read.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, minutes are approved.
So that subject should be added on when we discuss changes to changes to the municipal code, or probably the code.
And I think it's probably timely to talk about it as part of agenda item number 4. Just
We want to swap since Mr. Wall is on the Zoom to give him the opportunity instead of hanging out.
you see item number 5.
The courtesy review, and I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You want to
Yeah.
jump to item number 5, and then we can come back to item number 4. 82 Main Street courtesy review, attachment D.
Is he here?
Yes.
He had to travel to Denver today, so he's there.
Hello.
Yeah, Bill.
Hello, 82 Main Street. Welcome and thank you. Yes. Would you like to discuss your project, 82 Main Street?
Yeah, actually, being that it's the gateway corner to the town, we have in mind to take the house that's there without changing any of the square footage of it, but doing a conversion to take it from being a home to 4 small offices for the local business area, local business community. So the home will be split up. It's an ADA accessible building when we're done, and it's going to beautify the street. It's going to look quite different than it does now. The one difference that is to the structure that you would notice, and that I think the reason that we're here today, is that the roof line is not a single plane across the building. So what we'd like to do is make the fascia line across the building even all the way across the home, such that then all of the doors on the facing Main Street are going to be in line and have the same header heights, and it'll look right for the entrances to the various offices that'll be there.
So the fascia on the north side, you're talking about facing Main Street. That's the only
Facing-
change.
Yep, that's the only physical change in the appearance of the facade, other than the paint, and the windows will be changed to doors, and as you can see in the packet there. But to be able to have, there's a lot of people, I think, in the community that, they've been working out of their houses. We just spoke to a bookkeeper today, and she's looking for a small office because her office is being remodeled and she's got to move out. And, someone that needs to have maybe one or two assistants and, small business, whether it's an engineer, architect, attorney, whoever. They'll all have their own individual heating and cooling, and we have a community area there that's for everyone, and then there'll be the bathroom that'll be shared, the ADA bathroom.
So back to the fascia board there, you would be taking that gable end off of door number 3 and just making it straight across.
Yes. It would be the roof line, the ridge line would plane and the fascia would plane evenly. So it would be contiguous all the way across the house.
Oh, the ridge line too. So how does that tie into that second floor thing in the back on the?
That's a very strange thing they did there. That's a flat roof. It's a box. There's nothing there. It's basically hollow space above on the back side. So on the back side of the building, on the south face of the building, then the two sides, the two ridge lines from east and west will dive into that pop-up that they have already built there. So
And that
But that-
pop-up would stay?
it stays, yes.
There's stairs going up to that? Is that an additional
No.
room? What is that?
It's like I said, there's an attic space, sort of. There's an access to it, but it's not usable space.
Okay,
And why it ended up in the building or on that building, I'm not sure, because there's no obvious use of it.
How are we doing this? Questions for staff? Or is that, do we have, I think we want to have questions for staff. For staff, do you have any, is there any comments prior to that, or?
So this is kind of a funky one because the house was built in 1950 and obviously has been changed numerous times. I'm sure David can speak to that as he's gone through the building. But according to our code, it's 50 years or older, so it needs to come before us for the courtesy review. And like he stated, the only change is to that roof line there and then taking out the windows on the front and adding the doors. In the design guidelines, it does have in section 1.4 some comments on alterations. Adding a window or door opening should not interfere with the historic window and door pattern of the building. This just goes back to the building being built in 1950 or so and being hodgepodge since then. But according to the code, we do have to bring it before you for comments for the courtesy review. And David, when he applied for the building permit, we pointed that out to him. So he's just here to talk through the project and get any comments and go from there. And really in the design guidelines, that's the only section was the adding the window and door openings they could really find that really applies to this.
Any questions for staff?
Re-siding, are you looking at re-siding it with the same materials?
Questions for staff?
Hopefully I'm not doing that.
Excuse me?
So questions for the applicant will come after questions for staff. So just to try and keep some sort of order. Any questions for staff? No? Okay, questions for the applicants?
What are you looking at re-siding it with?
Actually, we pretty much have to keep the siding intact the way it is. The outside of the actual east side of the building is the original transite shingles, and those are going to stay. There is some T111. There is some fiberboard siding, and there's also the pro panel skirt. That hasn't been proposed to actually change too much other than, as far as the color scheme. We're putting a full new roof on it, of course. It's going to be brown. The paint is white trim with a green field around that. And it's got pavers, covered space in the front and the back. But, the siding, if we can keep it intact, we'd like to just sort of keep it intact.
Can I ask a staff a question? I'm sorry, backpedaling back to questions for staff. Is this one of the 5 lots that were annexed into the HCC, or is it?
No, this lot was actually when HCC, if you recall from the P and Z meeting back in 2014.
Okay, so it is part of HCC.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay,
Hence our courtesy review.
gotcha. Okay.
I got a staff question too. Just came up with it. The flat roof on that back attic structure thing, is that structurally sound, built in 1950? Is that adequate for being a flat roof?
I would defer to David on that one.
Yeah, right now it's a EPDM membrane. We have no leaks in the roof. It's worn well. I've been up there. Previously, we had some trees that could have caused some issues with it with debris, but now those trees have been cleared. So that wouldn't be an issue. And in the re-roofing, it gets a new TPO membrane that'll be applied. So we should be looking to have, 30 years out of it with the new roof.
And the structural pieces are good enough shape to, I think our code is 40 pounds a square foot kind of thing. Is the building department gonna be reviewing all this as they move forward?
So David did apply for the building permit and he's just waiting for this review to take place and it'll be issued.
Can we,
Actually, we already have the building permit, contingent. So that's good. And so the building officials will be doing inspections on the building.
I'm just concerned about the, a 50-year-old flat roof, being able to handle the snow load.
I don't think that section of the house is actually 50 years old.
Yeah.
That was definitely like I said, it's strange. There is no access to that area. No stairs going up to it, nothing it serves no purpose. It's just a giant box that extends above the roof line. So, but it doesn't appear that it's that age. And looking inside of the attic space there, all of the truss work and the timber work and such is all sound. So I feel confident that it's structurally okay.
You had mentioned a brown roof. Is it a metal roof, pro panel?
No, it'll be an asphalt shingle roof.
And it's sort of a galvalume presently?
Nah, there's a little bit of that on the other addition on the east side of the building that's got some metal, but that metal is all going to come off.
Well, I'm, in this case, all for sort of adapting an older building to a new use. And especially this one, I think it lends itself to, having some order put in it. Looks, my building and a block down, and all the windows were different sizes and from different centuries. And I can see that's sort of what you're dealing with now. And I think giving it a new identity and a new life for, a while would be great. I do think that this particular property is an opportunity to be sort of the entry into Carbondale. And it would be fun to entertain, what could go on there.
Tell us about the parking and landscaping.
The landscaping is in the works. We don't have the full design on that yet because we haven't discussed with the town how we can get access with from the sidewalk to the building, because where the property line is, there's a section that is owned by the town that we need to cross in order to actually physically have contact with the sidewalk, so that they've got a hard surface of these drive-on pavers. We're doing very beautiful pavers around that they can have access if they were in a wheelchair, so that they can get up to the building and into the doors and all that. So that's part of the design that we've, still have to work out. But, we've kept the fruit trees on the property, and we plan on bringing in more vegetation, different types of plants and such that are going to beautify the building and the area. There are 3 juniper trees on the corner there, which everybody can remember, that would look a little better if they were manicured, but hopefully that'll be able to be done as we get to the exterior part of the building.
So the paver parking is on the north side coming in from Main Street, or on the south and the back?
No, there's parking, there's off-street parking from Snowmass Road. And it's a very large easement area there around that corner, which is something else for the town to think about, would be to have diagonal parking, which would be very clear of any of the traffic area, but there is room there to be able to have parking spaces on that east side, as well as what's available right now in the back behind the building. Plus there's the front street parking on Main. So there's sort of a pull-out area right there on Main where can be parking and easy access to the sidewalk, and then to our walkway coming up to the home, to the building.
So the ADA access would be coming from parking on Main and crossing the sidewalk into one of the north side doors.
That would be the main way to get into the building. They'll also have access from the backside.
ADA.
Yes. Yeah, John's made that very clear in the building department that he wants it accessible. So we're trying to make that as an accessible a building as possible.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you for what you've done so far, because just the landscaping, you're doing a great job of cleaning up that lot. And as we've all said, it is the first thing you see when you come into town from that direction. So more power to you.
Well, thanks.
I have a question about the covered paver patio. What is the structure, like the roof coming over? Is it like a pergola?
It's going to be translucent and it'll carry the snow load. It's just designed for, being on the south side, it'll gather quite a bit of light there. We shouldn't probably have too much buildup off of that for snow, but it's just because two of the offices, when you look at the plan, there's two offices that don't have interior access to get into the bathroom. So they will come into the mezzanine, the common area, and walk through that to get to the bathroom, but they've got to go out the rear door of each office. So there's two ways in or out of each office. And so that's just going to be a short covered area such that, you know, that they can get back in the building and not be in the weather.
Okay.
But it's going to be open air, just covered and post.
And that door to the kitchenette area is also going to be a glass door?
It's not a glass door, and actually the drawing that you have was drawn before the doors were decided on that, and they show like glass doors. They're actually fiberglass, 6-panel type doors. They're much more of a secure door facing Main Street. We figured that all that glass, it might not be as secure. So the door that actually is going into the kitchenette is the door that you see on the back of the building right now, which is, it's a metal clad, it's got an oval stained glass insert in it. That's the door that will be moved over to there to be the access door to the kitchenette.
I'm just seeing like no natural light for like the interior office right now, except for that glass door. And if there's another glass door interior at the common area, and then you have like another glass door in the front, like it's gonna be very dark to me.
Actually, there's a very large skylight that stays in that center one. So it gets more light than any other office.
It's just not on here, so it's
Yeah, there is no roof plan that I gave you. I didn't draw that into the roof either, but there's quite a big skylight. So we're trying to get natural light into every single office. So that, you know, they either have glass on one end, the south sides are all glass, and the north side is just solid door, which I think just makes it a safer building.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Would someone, so what are we doing here? Are we recommending approval, or are we just saying thank you very much for?
Essentially, thank you very much.
David, thank you so much for sharing your project. It looks like a really great adaptive reuse to an existing building. We appreciate your efforts there, and thank you very much for sharing your proposal.
Well, thank you for considering it. I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Great.
Good night.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Well, it was nice of him to share.
Yeah.
I guess we could have deliberated with him here. Maybe that was the right course of action. We should probably get this procedure down a little bit better next time, but anybody have thoughts on the subject of this particular remodel? Anybody?
I would have
Thoughts?
wished we actually had like good renderings of and a roof plan and site plan.
Yeah, it would be nice,
Yeah.
but it costs money. I don't know if, is the property for sale?
He actually purchased it from the Buckmans.
Okay, so this
Yeah.
is what he's gonna do with it for the
Yep.
time being.
Which I would say my comment is I'm really surprised that they kept the building standing, but maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we give them so many challenges, as we've discussed before, that this was his easiest course of action. But
Mhm.
I walk by that property every day, and it already looks better than it did just from taking those trees and
If you,
so fingers crossed. I mean,
I mean, he eventually does want to redevelop it down the road. He owns a inspection business, not only home inspection, but contract inspection for building inspection, so on and so forth. So he knows what he's doing for sure. Plano and him,
Both?
he does not, no. The interesting fact is if you notice in your pictures in the packet, the front door is a red tag on it. Because we had to red tag it because he went ahead and beyond before the permit was issued, so.
Oh, he started he
Yeah.
actually started demoing or something with all I see that big pile of.
Some glass doors in the front, just
Mhm.
because it seems so, maybe might end up with like a storage facility or something. Just
If they're gonna do a solid door, it would have been a nice little tiny window next to it at least.
Yeah, seriously.
The zoning work for converting a single family residence into.
So,
office space, and also like multiple office spaces.
so technically, when this was rezoned in 2014, this became a non-conforming use. Because single-family residences are not allowed in the HCC. So for him to convert it into 4 offices, it's an allowed use, doesn't need to go through any process. So it's encouraged.
And the one across the street, that's transitional commercial.
That one did not go through the rezoning, which is going to go before the Board of Trustees, because only the Clay Center and then the former Dandelion Inn chose to go through the HCC zoning process. So that's 2 lots out of the 5 along that street. Although one of the property owners indicated that he would be coming in for an application soon.
Harmony's property, is that HCC? Harmony?
CT,
It's not,
yeah, yeah, she chose not to come in.
which is interesting because she wants
the stage stuff.
yeah, and she wants to turn it into an STR, or it is an STR
I think
currently.
it is.
Yeah, it is, yep.
So she wants to do an STR in the CT zone district, which is,
More hoops to jump through.
yeah, it's more risk.
Yeah, it's a interesting decision on her part.
It would have been advantageous for her to have gone through the annexation so that she could protect her STR status. I don't know if it really matters so much.
What's FDR?
That's short-term rental,
Oh,
right? The
Okay.
short-term rental exemption for HCC zone district was an attempted, protecting that use.
my comment about this whole thing is the fact that he's already got a building permit. It'd really be nice to have him come talk to us about what they're doing before they go talk to,
Technically, he doesn't have a building permit yet.
we said he did.
It hasn't been issued. That's been confirmed.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, because he can't get the building permit till this review. But after 180 days, if he doesn't have the review, then it gets it issued.
So but we don't need to actually motion to approve so that he can move forward with his. it's
Yeah,
just-
because remember, it's just a courtesy
It's a
review.
courtesy review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
You
So-
may now proceed
essentially.
to issuance.
So on the building permit, Plano's just gonna go in and make sure that he's done what he said he was gonna do. Is he also gonna be checking out the roof framing and that flat roof and, to make sure that's up to code for a flat roof as opposed to just the homeowner saying, well, it looks good enough to me.
Well, it's not really within our purview right now, but I would think that's a conversation you need to have with John Plano.
Yeah, it would be in Plano's purview.
Right.
My experience is if you touch it, then he can comment on it. If they don't touch any of that, then he has really nothing to say about it.
Hmm.
It's not following under new codes. You may have it condemned if it were falling down, but I don't know the process for that.
Yeah, I
But if
mean,
you touch the whole structure, then the whole structure becomes he's changing doors and windows and adding a bathroom. Kind of stuff. I would think that would open it up the whole building to have at least a minor review kind of thing.
And keep in mind, that's not part of this commission's discussion or
shut up.
purview, so you need to have that discussion with Plano.
Okay, well, that's great. Looking forward to seeing what he comes up with and the outcome. Any other comments? No? Okay. All right, jumping back to item number 4, the task force memo, recommendations from incoming mayor and response from Historic Preservation Commission Chair. So this this agenda item really revolves more around a memo that was sent out by Eric Dowd to the HPC and staff. Mostly, I think, outlining goals for the immediate and distant future. So does anybody want to comment on the memo?
He did share this with the task force and met with my approval on everything that he suggested.
Yeah, well, we should talk about that as number 1 on the list there for the medallion and plaque information sign. We're definitely moving forward on that, and we're got 13 or so plaques lined up, and we're going to send a letter out to these people clarifying what kind of plaque they want, and if it's an information sign, we'll get back to them and send them the verbiage that we're talking about putting on the sign and get their approval for that. And we'd like to get them ordered 2 or 3 weeks or so, so that we can have some lead time to get them here and start putting them in June, July, somewhere in there.
We're also getting rid of the QR code.
And we've eliminated the QR code. And someone is going to leave it up to the homeowners. If they have a picture they want on the information sign, we'll put it on. But if they don't, then we won't put a picture, we'll just put information. Because a couple of people I've already talked to said, well, I don't want a picture of the house. There's a house right there. Why are we going to put a picture on it? So they just want the info. So that's where that stands. And we need to know how the town, how to deal with the money. When they send a check in for their amount, do we need them to send it in before we order, or we make the order and then they send the check in when we get it and we put it in their yard? Or what do people think about that?
We need a final tally, the total cost, and then it can be processed.
And then what?
And then it can be processed.
Okay. And then what was the last one again?
And then finance can process it.
Financing.
Then you're looking
okay.
at like another 2 weeks after that.
So when do they want to send, when do we want them to send the check in?
Well, we need the tally first and then figuring out how much it's going to cost the CHPC, because this is coming out of our budget. And then once we get that tally, the town can issue a check to the CHPC or whoever is going to be handling it, the task force, so on and so forth. Then you can ask the homeowners to send it in a check at that time. I would think that would make sense.
And so then they just send it into the town treasurer or whomever.
Finance department, correct.
Yeah. Okay, and we need to put that process in the letter when we send it out to ask them these other questions. And that's that. It'll be a done deal, and then we'll do it and start it over again. We'll start keeping the out there in front of them and letting more people next year when they see these up and they say, ooh, that's nice, I want one in my yard, then we'll do it again for next year. The way I see it, until we get all 50 or 60 homes done. Plus Main Street. Plus the houses that didn't make the survey. That's it.
Okay, that's item number 1. Did you have something?
Just real quick, we do have one home that is not in the structures of merit. It was not surveyed, but it was built in 1883 by Ottawa Tanny. And it's at 226 2nd Street. And I don't know, do we need to, it's Brigitta's home. And I don't know if we need to vote on that. As far as I'm concerned, the homeowner has quite a bit of historic information regarding the home and proof and photos and everything else. So my thought is that we absolutely say, yes, you can have a plaque. Is there any, do we need to vote on that, or is there some issue with us doing that? There's not an issue, is there?
I don't see one.
Okay,
Yeah.
You're talking about just designating it as a structure of merit?
well, no, just doing the plaque.
Oh.
Well, but yeah,
I mean, it
doesn't
would-
it has
It would be a structure of merit.
the plaque kind of
Structure
does.
of merit if it's been surveyed.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we'll just do the plaque, and then if we have another round of surveys, that could be a contender.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, what's the intent of the plaques?
Just to designate the homes as old structures of merit, and
But this is not a structure of merit.
well, not by the survey, but it can't anybody come in and ask to be a structure of merit, whether they're on the survey or not?
No.
No,
You'd
to
have
be
to
a
meet
structure of merit,
criteria.
you have to be surveyed.
Well,
Did the CHPC request a property be surveyed to be a structure of merit?
Correct,
doesn't-
in consultation with the consultant that's doing said survey.
Right.
Right.
Consultant is using a criteria to determine whether it's eligible for to be a structure of merit. If it's been changed or modified too much, then it's not eligible for that status. And it sounds like, I mean, I don't really know, but it's possible that this one has been modified to the point where it's not eligible. So then you got to ask yourself, well, if it's not eligible to be a structure of merit, does it meet the, does it? Well, I mean, the picture's not the, you know,
The alternative being a local landmark. I see.
that's a criteria.
Designate a local landmark. We'd have to work with the
I mean, it's gotta meet a criteria in order to achieve these, you know, this status.
I'll have to look at the code. I was under the impression that the CHPC could say about any building that they would like to designate it as a local landmark. That doesn't mean it's landmarked.
You
In the
know,
state.
a local landmark has a specific definition. You
Yeah.
can't just be going, I mean, we could say it's a nice house.
Yeah.
This is a very nice house,
Yeah.
but we can't say that it, you know, meets a criteria that's been predetermined.
Yeah, to go through the landmark designation, it'd have to be an application by the CHPC or the property owner or the Board of Trustees. Then we'd have to review it at a public hearing, make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, working with the owner, and then the Board of Trustees would review the designation, request for designation.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
but to be a structure of merit, can the landowner take the information that they have and pictures and dates, and she's got the original deed or something, and send it off to one of the two survey people.
They could do that at their own cost
Yeah,
and pay for the surveyor to come up, do the research, so on and so forth, and then send that off to History Colorado.
I guess we better go talk to that lady.
Well, I
Well,
talked
it
to her at
depends
length
on-
yesterday, but
It depends on what you're trying to achieve with the plaques. Are you trying to acknowledge structures of merit? Or are you just going around giving out plaques?
Well, we're trying to designate the historically significant buildings that are in homes that are in town. And it seems like this is one, but it didn't get surveyed. Being built by Ottawa Tanny, who is a very highly important person in a highly significant location. And even before the town was here, it was built. It just really seems like it needs to be part of that classification.
What classification was that?
Was historically significant home.
I mean, it has a story, but it may have been changed so much over the years that it's not eligible for
For
the
the,
structure of merit.
yeah, for the architectural part of the structure. But there's historical significant stuff too that would make it, I think, a structure of merit. Architectural part is really looking through the surveys. That's it's called an architectural survey, but he spends just as much time in the history part as he does the architecture part. So it's really kind of both.
so in answer to your question, really, the bottom line for what we were trying to achieve with the plaques is just recognition. So if someone's walking
Yeah.
around the town and they're interested in our town and what's historic, oh, I recognize that that's one of the older homes, that's one of the older homes. And really and truly, we want people to think they're special and not tear them down. We don't have a code. We don't have anything that keeps people from tearing these homes down. And so that's the goal of the plaques. Now, this home, from what I'm understanding, structure of merit, that's a whole big architectural survey. It's probably numerous properties at once. We've hired a consultant. So this home is not going to be part of that right now, which means the plaque itself will not be able to say structure of merit. But I do feel that if someone comes to us and truly has a historic home, whether it's been changed or not, they should have an opportunity to have a plaque. I
So
don't
it's
see
gonna
why
be
they
more of an
wouldn't.
informational plaque about the history of this
Sure,
college.
Sure,
house.
and what's fascinating about really diving into those structures of merit, all three surveys, is it was a little bit, some of the homes were really changed and they still got into those surveys. And some of them weren't, but it was kind of interesting to go through all of those. So my thought with this, and the reason I brought it up, is I think she should be able to have a plaque. She's not a structure of merit at this point, unless we have another survey and we add her in as a group, and say, yes, that house should be on that. But that's my thought on the topic.
So she could have an informational sign that has nothing about structure or merit.
Right.
And just still do it through this process that we're doing. And then people that want the little structure of merit, they gotta be part of the surveyed. And if we wouldn't say anything at all about structure of merit.
Oh.
How's that? Does that kind of fit in with?
Well, I mean, it's town funds and it's commission funds. So I don't know how clear you are with the criteria for designation. But, it sounds a little like we're kind of getting away from the original intent, which I thought was, plaquing structures of merit. We're opening it up to a larger audience. That's, I mean, we could just give out plaques, but we don't have a ton of money.
Okay, so if the town
so-
doesn't pay for any of it,
Then
then
anyway,
she can do whatever she
she
wants.
can make whatever plaque she
Okay.
wants and put it on her
Okay.
house.
All right.
Can I have a plaque?
Yeah, you can, if you want, I'll design it for you. But I don't think that the town of Carbondale should be paying for it necessarily.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
No, I think Nick makes a good point, is there's a criteria that needs to be met by these structures of merit, and therefore are the plaques designating structures of merit, or are the plaques designating this is a nice building and we like it, right? And there's a hard line there, and if we cross it, then we're sort of diluting the structures of merit plaque, right? I think.
Okay, fair enough. Black and white.
So my thought is that we would just have to tell her like, well, the house needs to be surveyed, and maybe that can happen in the next round of surveys, or maybe you can pay to have that done on your own
Maybe it's eligible.
and see if it's eligible.
And then we have it surveyed, and that
I mean,
has,
that might be a very quick and easy answer, whether it's considered for structure of merit.
I mean, if it is, I'd be curious to know if it is eligible, why it wasn't surveyed.
There are a few around town that were
There's
missed.
quite a few around that,
So maybe we should talk about doing another survey.
Well,
definitely.
he was mentioning like the old Hannibals, the log structures as being sort of the next go around.
Yep. Yep, the panabodes are really interesting. That's an interesting building type, and they're worth saving. I'm tearing one down right now, as a matter of fact. Don't ask me. But anyway. So, yeah,
How do we get
Kind of
that?
digress, but I hear what everybody's saying, and that's fine. That's a decision for now.
I think you're eroding your own credibility
Sure.
when you start
I hear ya.
deviating from the criteria.
Okay, yeah, I
Um,
I think I also come into this with a little bit of a bias because I really dove into all of those structures of merit, and I saw a lot of subjective treatment of the homes and some discrepancies as far as what was surveyed, what wasn't surveyed. So I have a little bit of a bias for that, but I hear what you're saying. I accept it. We can move on. For the moment, it's not a structure of merit and it's not a plaque that's paid for by the town. That's fine.
I mean, maybe it's worth it, taking that up with the person who actually did the survey and asking that person, what was his criteria for making.
We keep
The survey.
asking, what is the criteria for a structure of merit?
He came and explained it to us.
But there wasn't just one person. There were two different
there-
architects.
Susanna Reed
Yeah,
and that Ron guy from Fort
Well, and keep
Collins.
in mind that they were focusing on certain parts of town. This area of town may not have been within their purview.
it's
Gotcha.
catty corner from 211 Euclid. So
Yeah, I think that.
Anyway,
I think the
we could go
cutoff was
on and
second
on with
on
this.
Susanna's, yeah.
really,
Do we need to
It's
start
a
putting a
little weird.
list of structures that probably need to be in the survey for the next round?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need that for sure.
so I
mean, just
agree
look-
what we're saying with here, but just to let you know, since I'm talking to a group of architects, I'm kind of coming at it from the historical point of view, the historically significant point of view too. And this home seems to me to be extremely historically significant.
And there's probably a place for that story,
Yeah,
but it's not
yeah.
here.
But that place has been placed in the architectural survey.
That story probably belongs in the historical society.
But this is an architectural / historical survey that the town has done. So anyway,
I just,
Bottom line, it's not currently a
Yeah,
structure
we're
of
not
merit,
gonna-
so
we're
it's
not gonna
not
pursue
a
it
part
that way.
of this
just kind of,
from looking at it,
project.
I can tell you that that chimney in the front is not original. The one in the back might be. It's got all new windows. It's got a concrete foundation. There's a lot of stuff on this house that may make it ineligible, but I don't know that for certain. I mean, that bay window is not original.
Have you read all of the structures of merit?
No.
Like, because, trust me, we don't even need to get that detailed because things have been changed and changed and changed. So it's not, you're correct, of course, about everything you're saying, but
What's
it goes
original?
all over the map as far as what they surveyed. And, there are a lot of homes here. I think it would have been a hard thing to figure out which things to
yeah, a
survey.
lot of them been changed. There's only
Yeah.
one really that is exactly the way it was when it was built, that I found. I mean, exactly, right down to the same front porch trim and everything, and nothing changed. All the others have had some sort of alterations, one
It's
way or
not making our
another.
lives easier.
No, but I didn't mean to take us down I
So
just needed
we'll
to know
go.
what to tell this person, so.
We will move on.
That's a future goal, is to get another
Yes.
round of survey.
I agree. I think that's a great goal. The surveys I think are useful.
And moving right into not spending too much time on number 2 there, which takes us to the next step of above structures of merit would be the local landmark for some, and this specifically for the Thompson House Museum, which is on the National Registry, but which should make it pretty easy to do a local landmarking process, which is just us. We don't have to go to the state or anybody. And the Dinkle Building, those two really should be kind of no-brainers for us, I think.
So the Thompson House is part of the designation on the national registries that it could not be locally designated. That's
Oh, yeah?
that's a federal deal, so,
Huh,
yeah,
well, it shoots that
It can't be
down.
landmarked?
locally.
It cannot. be
Because
locally.
we have language in our code that says if you're landmarked, you can demolish it. So national register, you can't demolish it. So we'd have two codes fighting against each other. And when it was nationally landmarked, it was decided by the consultants, the feds, that, yeah, no, you don't want to go down that route.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yep. And you'll be seeing a review of the Dinkle Building work that's going to be done on them pretty soon too. So that might be a good time to bring up that discussion.
Before he actually finishes his planning,
Is what?
before he actually finishes up and brings it to us.
Right. I mean, remember, he has to submit a building permit first to kick in the courtesy review.
And it would be,
But it's
in
not,
my view, awesome, where we're giving this review at a schematic level and not as a afterthought.
Yeah, the architects are doing, the architects are doing quite the job.
so he applies for the building permit and that kicks in our review.
Correct.
But, and after our review, the building permit is issued or denied. He doesn't,
Well, our review does not affect whether or not the building permit is issued or denied. Our review is a courtesy review of the work that they are proposing to do. So our review is by the design guidelines to see what they're doing, if we like it or not, if it's historically correct. And then they make their presentation, we give them thoughts and comments. Then they can go on their way, either accept those thoughts and comments or not accept those thoughts and comments. But if we don't perform that review within 180 days, the building permit gets issued no matter what. And then after our hearing, it gets issued if it's good to go.
Which is a courtesy review, so it's good.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
but he's not gonna have his building permit issued until after our courtesy review,
Right, unless it's outside of
unless it's
180 days.
180 days out.
Right.
Okay,
And we've met with the architects twice now to go over the proposed changes, so.
Who's the architect?
Oh, I just totally forgot her. Erica Golden,
Oh, no way.
her firm.
2757.
Yeah, 2757.
We
I can
work with
never
them all
remember
the-
that. Yeah. Yeah, so they're bringing it forward.
Nice. That's a big job.
And remember, the owner of the building has come before us and commented before that he really wants to keep it as is. A lot of it's just ADA stuff. And some-
anything exterior?
There is going to be a second entrance on the back for ADA. And then they're going to be replacing windows, doing some pointing on the bricks, working on the cornice. Yeah,
Oh,
there you
good.
go. I knew you'd like that. So it's going to be a good review.
That's great. Well, I don't know that we need to go through every single bullet point on this. I think we're all in agreement that, you know, everybody likes the idea and the direction that this is headed. I just want to point out that a lot of the items on this list are going to take funding
And a lot of time.
and time and resources that we currently don't have. And I wrote a little response email saying that maybe it would be, you know, advantageous for us to consider ways to generate more funding, maybe in the way of grant writing, finding, you know, maybe allocating some of the, you know, dwindling funds that we currently have that's going to plaques. Think about reallocating some of that money for grant writing so that we can actually find someone who is a grant writer who could then help us generate more money so that we could talk about either hiring a part-time staff member who can help us with more grant writing or more direction,
Writing like design guidelines.
all of these things that are on this terrific list that Eric came up with that we can't afford. We simply can't afford most of the stuff that's on that list. We can't really afford anything that we want to do. We can't meaningfully afford the plaques. Like, you're talking about 50 plaques, like where's that coming from? I mean, when we're talking about giving out plaques to people who don't even meet the criteria now, like we don't have the money to do the plaques that we have now. So you know, if we want to do something, we need to find a way to make some money.
So that we can do another survey again.
If we want to do a survey, that's a grant.
Another thing, go through History Colorado.
Exactly. So, you know, does it make sense to think about this or to even, you know, consider what little funding we have to utilize that to find more funding?
Would we have to put a bid out for a grant writer?
That, I mean, we don't, do we have to put a bid out for a grant writer? I mean, that's, I mean, where do we even, I am not a grant writer. I've never written a grant in my life.
I was asking more John.
I mean, the History Colorado grants are pretty straightforward. For the structures of merit, we hired the consultant first and then they wrote the grant. In the past, at the staff level, we've done it. Along those same lines with funding, in the past, this commission has worked Mountain Fair at the beer tent. I think the past 2 years, it has not happened. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, we got like $6,000 out of it or something like that. It was pretty huge. It was a massive amount of money.
You guys don't seem all that busy. You could do it, right?
There's changes coming.
That's the one thing, you know, I see all these great ideas on this list, but I don't see any way to pay for it.
I mean, in the past, as I pointed out before, this commission wrote the amendment to the design guidelines. You guys revised it. I mean, there's enough architects on here. They paid for it themselves. They just put in the sweat and tears.
Yeah, this, the chapter 16 language, I think we've already come up with amendments to the chapter 16 language, to some of the provisions in chapter 16. That's already happened. Have we brought it, everything, we even brought it to planning and zoning. You know, that we could do that again with the same proposal. But it seems like a lot of the other items that are on the list, I just don't see any feasibility in it if we don't have, I mean, adding OTR as part of a courtesy review, we could do that. It'll just add workload. What about additional planning staff? Are you guys, is town of Carbondale talking about doing that? Really?
Originally, it was supposed to be a planning tech. The Board of Trustees have indicated that they'd rather have a housing planner, so it's evolving.
Okay.
It's constantly changing. And there's also some other staff changes that are going to happen here soon that's going to affect that.
Taking more on.
Oh, yeah.
Taking more on.
A little bit, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's just an evolving thing.
So I don't know how that impacts HPC. The job description is being developed. It does not mean that we're going to get somebody in town staff who has HPC or CLG experience or History Colorado experience, although that would be a nice perk, I think, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely a thing to keep in mind here that, you know, Eric had a conversation with Ben, who is one of 7 members of the board. So what that conversation, what happened there may not even fold into what the rest of the board thinks. So
Right.
that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
John, were you saying that in the past, this commission has done some fundraising?
Mhm.
That's what it sounded like you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
So that's within our purview. We can,
Yes.
if we have
absolutely.
the energy and the approval, we can figure out a way to make money.
Absolutely.
Okay. We've been wondering about that. The task force has.
We've worked the Mountain Fair tent, I believe, probably 11 years ago or so. There was an event at Dandelion Days and Potato Days too. I don't remember. Do you remember any of that, Jess? There was like 3 things. I'd have to check and see.
But if we were looking for a tent at Mountain Fair, I would think we
That's-
probably already missed that opportunity.
Well, it's not really a tent. You had all the boards and commissions traditionally and other fund or, you know, special interest groups, fundraising groups, nonprofits will work the beer tent for a certain amount of time, half a day, several hours, and all the tips that come in go to your board and commission.
$6,000 in tips.
I think there were a lot of donations too, so it wasn't just tips.
Sure.
Yeah. They were working it.
I'm in the wrong business.
We need to
That's-
make up some historical significant home T-shirts and start selling them and hats.
It's not a bad idea. Anyway, I think that there are a lot of opportunities to generate money for the commission to start, you know, chipping away at this really great list. It's my only observation that we don't have any. So a lot of the stuff on this list is not going to be really all that practical until we can find a source of revenue and grant writing. I mean, there are plenty of municipalities out there that are doing that successfully. More often than not, you know, those, you know, the ones that I'm aware of are a little bit larger municipalities. They have more people, they have more tax revenue, more sources of income, and their staff they have staff devoted to grant writing. We may not have that. This is a smaller town. But I think that there are opportunities through History Colorado and that, you know, that are available to us. We could generate some money to do some stuff.
Well, just in the way that the surveys were done, the surveyor was hired and he wrote the grant.
Through, right, he wrote his own grant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is there a way to get somebody to work on the design guidelines to take the job on and then get a grant for it?
I think it's just a matter of picking up the phone. Somebody wants to take that on.
Who would you call?
Same guy who did the last one. I
Ron.
thought he-
Surveys? No,
What's that?
design guidelines?
Oh, for design guidelines? We already have language, proposed language for amendments to the design guidelines.
I think we're just adding a chapter. Chapter 4 to add the OTR in there. I'm not writing it. I think Eric was actually the one that was thinking of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote a bunch of stuff. We proposed it to planning and zoning. It didn't move into the next step. Is that something that we need to pursue?
Mhm.
I think we should. I don't remember what happened. Let's try it again.
I think the big thing was you had the language, took the basic concept to P and Z, but you don't actually have it folded in to the design guidelines. And then the next step after that was then to take it to P and Z and then propose, here's what we're looking at doing with this courtesy review with this language for the OTR, folding it into the UDC and chapter 16 to add that courtesy review, because those are two separate paths. Because P and Z is UDC, Board of Trustees is chapter 16. I think the main point here would be to have that language formatted, included. You vote on it, you approve it, it's included, then you take that forward and say, hey, we've approved this new section that would apply to the OTR if you will allow us that purview to take it that far into the OTR for the courtesy review.
So the next step is that we need to fold it into the language and bring it here.
Yep.
And vote on it.
Yeah.
amongst ourselves.
Because then you have something concrete, here's what we all agreed on. These are the standards we think for courtesy review, these design guidelines for the residential sections. Keep in mind that these guidelines are just for the HCC commercial buildings, but you look at how large the HCC zone district is, there's plenty of residential in there, but it's not really addressed within these design guidelines. And that could almost be your selling point too. And then have the discussion with the expansion into the OTR.
So a chapter of residential guidelines in the HEC and then OTR is like chapter 5 kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Could be. Or just have the disclaimer that the residential guidelines are applicable to those residential units within the OTR zone district and now within, or maybe, sorry, HCC and within the OTR.
Okay. So is Eric working on that language? Is that the idea?
Isn't that what he was doing? The last task force? Just figuring that one out.
I think Eric works on that language in his sleep. So the answer is yes. He's always working on that language. Yes, he's dedicated to that.
Okay. Well, great. I'm looking forward
Before
to.
we wrap up real quick, I know you don't want to go down the list, but one more on here. Number 4 was a request from John Laybourne, realistic figure for cost of consultant. I figured that'd be real quick. Are you able or willing to speculate on what a realistic figure would be for this? Because I think
I thought I brought that to a meeting before, but I can check it. I want to say for these design guidelines for a complete development, I want to say we paid Susanna like 30 grand.
Okay.
Because I think that's where we came at that meeting to that $5,000 number. I could be totally wrong, but double check on that, shoot out an email.
Okay, thanks.
And do we have a digital copy of the design guidelines? So when we actually fold it in, we can put it together.
Yep.
Is it in design? Do we have a
It's Word.
word? Okay.
Okay, any other comments on the memo from Eric or any of the comments associated with it?
His email was pretty classic, saying that he wasn't going to be here because it's like, well, I threw that grenade and I won't be able to attend. Like, really?
Okay, would like, someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I can't make a motion.
Oh.
I'm
Okay.
a-
I'll
Meeting
second.
adjourned. Thanks, everybody.